Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. So what I'd like to do today, I wasn't really sure which direction to go, but I think we need to kind of take a quick step back and review the roster as it is. So first of all, it's worth noting that the Packers released wide receiver Tulu Griffin. That brings them down to 89. Ken Ingalls believes they're making an opening for someone. Entirely possible. There's been no news as of yet. It's also possible they just determined that this isn't going to work and are now going to move on to the next. Because, they got a huge list that they would like. So either somebody became available that they liked and they had to get rid of Tulu, or they just determined that wasn't going to work and they'd rather have the next person. It's kind of the same thing, but there's a slight difference there, I guess. So there are 89 people, and remember, there's also the tryout people as well that are not currently counting. So like yesterday, I was talking about the quarterback situation. We have 3 quarterbacks right now, not 4. But as I mentioned, the Packers would like to go into camp with 4, probably. Like to have an arm to be able to play around with as opposed to the established guys that they have. So there's a decent chance, pending finding somebody else, that the Canuck, unless he decides to, because he's visiting with Buffalo, I believe, at the moment, unless that goes really well. But as it stands, you know what? Actually, we need to do something. I forgot to do it yesterday. Let's do it today. It's not a big thing, but it's a big off-season thing, I guess you could say. Christian Watson was out at some event, I'm not really sure where, but the media caught up with him, got a few words out of him. He doesn't really provide an update, but I'll just play this little bit here.
Definitely happy to be back. Being around the guys, it's always a little different when you're around the team. A little bit more, life, to the party. But recovery is going really well. I'm in a really good spot here. Just keeping the mentality there. Keep just working. I got a couple more months ahead of me, but I'm attacking it every day. I'm in a really good spot.
Griffin, you're someone that's gone through so much, just injury-wise. You've persevered through a lot. Like, where does that grit and that perseverance come from?
I think it just comes down to, what I've been through, in my life in terms of, adversity that I've faced. I don't really think that there is, anything that could, hit me that, I wouldn't try to fight through and, overcome. I think it's just the way I was raised. I was raised to be a fighter and to, chase after the things that I want. And, I've gotten a lot in my life so far, but, there's still a lot of things that I want, so I'm going to keep on fighting for it.
So that's it. You can certainly read too much into that if you choose to. He said couple months, so maybe he'll be there ready at the start of the season. He said it's going really well. He said. I don't think anything changes. If it does, that'd be great. But, I didn't hear anything that necessarily, unless you decide to read too much into that. I'm glad things are going well. I'm guessing he's not lying. There's no setbacks or anything like that, which is good. He is on schedule, ahead of schedule, whatever it may be. That still means he's going to be out for a long time. But, just need to get him back healthy. Glad he's in good spirits, and hope he's ready to come out frickin' guns a-blazing, man. Because I just don't want the Packers to make a decision that sucks. But all right, let's get back to it real quick here. At quarterback, we have Jordan Love backing with Malik Willis backing him up, and then Sean Clifford as the number 3 guy. Our running backs currently, Josh Jacobs. We got the rookie, or the second-year guy, the rookie that didn't play. He's basically a rookie, Marshawn Lloyd. Very excited to see that guy. Remember, he was a third-round pick, super talented guy, built very much like Josh Jacobs, 5'9", 220 pounds. Freaking monster. Emmanuel Wilson, who is just a phenomenal running back, apparently. We also have Chris Brooks. We have 2 new guys that we added, Amar Johnson and Jalen White. Amar Johnson is 5'9.5", call him 5'10", 205 pounds. Jalen White, 6'2", 205. Kind of already talked about those guys, but maybe we'll double back at another time. not so much today. At least I don't think so. We'll see where this takes us. Tight end, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, Ben Sims, John Fitzpatrick. We've also got Messiah Swinson and Johnny Lumpkin. So it's a pretty big group. As of right now, we don't have any new undrafted free agents, but we got a lot of guys to play with here. And then at wide receiver, we got Matthew Golden, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Savion Williams, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Malik Heath, Julian Hicks, Mecole Hardman, Cornelius Johnson, Bo Melton. They have Bo Melton at the back. I didn't deliberately do that. But that's 11, and we'll get to numbers and 53 and all that in a minute. I just want to go through everybody that's here right now. That's going to be a wild group, by the way, because you have 6 guys that are, I mean, Watson obviously isn't going to be playing or anything. He's going to be on PUP or IR or whatever, however you handle that. But we'll call that 6 locks or 5 guys that are going to be participating in the offseason program. You've also got Malik Heath, who's been a staple. You got Mecole Hardman, who's a new addition. You got Bo Melton, that's been a staple. And you also got Julian Hicks and Cornelius Johnson, who are going to be in there fighting. And then as far as the offensive line, we got a bunch of guys here. Rasheed Walker, rookie, new addition Aaron Banks, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom. We got rookie Bo Melton, rookie John Williams, and then Jacob Monk, second-year Jordan Morgan, Travis Glover, Kadeem Telfort, Donovan Jennings, Marquise Hayes, and then we brought in a few guys here. We got Brant Banks, another Banks, and then Tyler Cooper and J.J. Lippy, who I think are the 2 Wisconsin guys. So 17 offensive linemen right now. On the defensive side, starting with the interior, we got Clark and Wyatt. We got Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks. We got James Esther and rookie 6th-round pick Warren Brinson. We've got Nesta Jade Silvera, the guy that we picked up this offseason, as well as Keith Randolph, another guy that we picked up. He was with Chicago. He was a free agent. Chicago waived him, and then we picked him up in 2025. And then we've got the undrafted free agent Nazir Stackhouse. Off the edge, we got Gary and Van Ness, Kingsley Enigbare, and rookie 4th-round pick Baron Sorrell. We've got Brenton Cox and rookie 5th-round pick Colin Oliver. We've got Aaron Mosby and Deslin Alexander, and then Jeremiah Martin. So we have 9 pass rushers and 9 interior defensive linemen. At inside linebacker, or stack linebacker, as we all have to say now, Quay and Cooper, McDuffie and Tyron Hopper, who I'm really excited to get some more opportunities, Isaiah Simmons, who we picked up, along with Christian Welch, and then undrafted free agent Jamon Johnson, Mr. Dumas. At corner, we will include, for now, Jair Alexander, although I still am leaning toward he won't be here, Keyshawn Nixon, and Nate Hobbs, with Nate Hobbs currently designated as a slot guy. Then we have Carrington Valentine, along with rookie 7th-round pick Micah Robinson, and last year's 7th-round pick Kalen King. 2 guys that we picked up in the offseason, Isaiah Dunn and Caleb Hayes, along with Kamal Haddon. And then 3 undrafted free agents, Kazir Brown, Tyron Herring, and Jonathan Baldwin. So I believe that's 12 corners in total. And then for safety, obviously we have Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney. By the way, Javon Bullard could potentially be included in that corner room. He's currently called a safety. We'll have to sort all that out now with Nate Hobbs coming in and whatnot. But Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams at safety, Zane Anderson and Javon Bullard, and then Katan Oladapo, or however you say it. Nonsense. I wish it was just Katan Oladapo, because that's how I want to say it. And Omar Brown. So 6 safeties. And then we have Daniel Whalen is our punter. We've also got the 6'9" guy, who presumably is a camp tryout person, because I don't see him listed here. Hopefully he can get signed so we can have some fun competition with that freak. And then at place kicker, we have Brandon McManus, along with Alex Hale. Long snapper, Matt Orzich. I mean, I know we only have 1 spot, and I've already asked for a bunch to be added, the quarterback, the punter, But boy, oh boy, would it be nice to have a long snapper competition. Maybe I should stop picking on the guy. I don't know. What did he do wrong last year? I don't know. Probably something. I just wish we had a competition. The holder, Daniel Whalen. And then punt return, kick return. We've got, obviously, we'll see. We got some rookies that might be competing in there. But for now, considering Mecole Hardman, Keyshawn Nixon, and Jaden Reed. I think Jaden Reed needs to just lose that job, but he's probably going to be getting some opportunities. So that is our group as of right now. There's probably going to be some shuffling on the bottom end of this with some of these undrafted free agents. They might want to bring in some of the tryout guys. So we'll see as, maybe through phase 2, or I don't know when you start. Probably not phase 1. I know we already lost one guy, which again is probably due to other circumstances. But once they get a chance to actually see these guys on the field, they'll be making some adjustments and whatnot. But I tell you what, let's take a break here. Having gone through that, we'll come back, and I want to go through a little bit of the Packers' trends as far as their roster construction and maybe start to look. Obviously, we're not going to officially start doing a 53-man roster at this point, but we can kind of take a look at maybe where there's going to be some stress as far as tough competitions, If this is the number we're shooting for and we have this many people, we can already look at wide receiver, for example. That's obviously going to be a tough one, and we'll see what other ones are going to be maybe strained a little bit. And then also, on the other side, some maybe lighter areas where guys have legit shots of making it. But we will take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, so digging in a little bit as far as the roster construction, I tried to do, again, if I was smart, I would just save all the information, but I'm not. And it probably is saved somewhere, but I'd rather just redo it than go digging. But I thought, first of all, we've kind of grazed past it, but never really directly addressed it, the relationship between Ted Thompson and Brian Gutekunst. I've kind of talked about the fact that, they're not the same guy. I think a lot of people like to pretend that Brian Gutekunst is just another Ted Thompson and he never does anything and all this stuff, which is, if we're being honest, that's completely absurd. Ted Thompson was an absolute draft and develop purist. Remember, Mike McCarthy made a joke. How the heck did that go? He's talking to the press. It was something like, they said, what is it like around free agency time? And he said, oh, is it free agency right now? And then he kind of paused and looked around and he said, that's what it's like. But he had a very staunch commitment to draft and develop. Got some phenomenal results from that. Some mid-round guys, Josh Sitton in the 4th round, TJ Lang in the 4th round the next year, Corey Linsley in the 5th round, Bakhtiari in the 4th round. And when he did go into free agency, there was only 2 modes. There was the, okay, fine, I'll admit it, we have to have somebody in, so I'm going to get the least I can get to fulfill the minimum requirements. That was the usual Ted Thompson move in free agency. On the other hand, there was the swing, the completely random swing for the fences. 2006 was a phenomenal year. He not only got Ryan Pickett, but he got Charles Woodson. I don't know if the Packers win the Super Bowl if he didn't do that. To be fair, we don't win the Super Bowl if he didn't do everything he did in the draft as well, but legitimately, that set us up for some massive success. And then, of course, in 2014, getting Julius Peppers, it didn't get us a Super Bowl. I think we had some opportunities, but what an absolutely awesome addition Julius Peppers was to this franchise. But in general, that was his thing. Then Brian Gutekunst comes in 2018. He sits for a year, and the next year he just tears down and rebuilds the whole frickin' thing. It was the most insane free agent period that I think I had encountered in the entirety of the start of Ted Thompson era through this new Brian Gutekunst era. Immediately, day one, Packers did this, Packers did this, Packers did this. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Adrian Amos, Billy Turner. He's also much more aggressive in the draft. Traded up for Jair, traded up for Savage, traded up for Jordan Love. He traded up for Christian Watson, whereas Ted Thompson was much more of a trade back guy, which, Gutekunst does that as well, and I think that there's a lot of reason to believe that that's the right thing to do. As I've said before, there's also an element of if that's the guy, we're going to go get him. And Ted did that too. I think it was just a little bit less often. Again, I think Gutekunst is similar, but just a little bit more, it's evolution, not revolution, if you will. We're slightly evolving the draft and develop philosophy to be a little bit more aggressive. Obviously, there's the correlation with RAS, which I think Ted Thompson also was quite high in, but again, in terms of aggressiveness, he wants the big swings, he wants the big guys. Again, he doesn't use RAS. There is a correlation between the people he picks and RAS scores, but that's just because, there is a confounding variable, which I argued with the robot. I went and talked to them. I'm like, am I using confounding variable right in this? And they're like, well, kind of, but it's a little circular with athleticism and RAS being kind of, a similar same thing or whatever. But you know what? I want to use it anyways because it makes me sound smart if I say confounding variable. But the confounding variable is athleticism. In other words, when people see trends, they see this thing correlates to this thing, we assume that one causes the other, when in reality, there might be one thing that's causing both of them. And that thing is athleticism. High athleticism is what gives somebody a high RAS score. High athleticism is also what draws the Packers to a prospect. The Packers never have to touch, look at, or know RAS exists. If just to think that has to be a thing that they do is so stupid. It is a basic measurement of athleticism. It just means that the Packers like athletic. If RAS was some weird metric that put together intelligence, athleticism, off the field issues, it was just weird, all-encompassing, holistic metric, and the Packers consistently ranked highly on that, you could maybe have a slightly better argument, although, again, you're just talking about a person with high traits. But to say that, he uses RAS, it's a basic measurement of athleticism. It's so silly, but also confounding variable. I said it. And I don't care. I argued with the robot for so long. I was like, can I say that? And they're like, well, here's what you should probably say. What did it tell me to say? People assume Gut is explicitly using the RAS metric, but what he's really valuing is raw athletic traits, size, explosive agility, which RAS just happens to score. It's athleticism driving both RAS numbers and his picks, not the RAS algorithm itself. It's like, yeah, but I think I should still be able to say it, so I'm going to say it. That doesn't sound as good. And it's like, yeah, but you're wrong, and here's what you should say. Gutekunst isn't literally plugging RAS into his board. He's chasing raw athletic traits like explosion, length, and burst. RAS just happens to capture those traits. It's like, you know what? No. I'm saying confounding variable, so shut up. I just learned it, and I want to put it in a sentence. Okay? Stupid idiot. Circular. It's not circular. You're circular. But anyways, they don't use RAS. Some of the other differences, when you look at the final 53, Thompson actually generally like to lean a little bit more defensive heavy. Gutekunst has been very 50-50 through his time with very slight variability. 25 players on each side and 3 specialists. So that's one of the things when you're if you're trying to build a 53, you look at all the trends. That's one of the things you want to try to do if you find yourself too heavy on one side or the other, is to try to balance that out. It could be a coincidence, but it's a thing. As far as quarterbacks, Gutekunst has traditionally been a guy to keep 2. 2019, 2021, 2022, 2024. The thought process is that this is kind of a trust thing, and I think, assuming we keep Malik Willis, there's every reason to believe that that's going to be good enough. The idea that we might need to carry a third, yeah, I don't know. Considering we got a guy that went out there and won games and played at a pretty high level, I think we're pretty confident. As I'm sure you know, we really don't super need to talk about, under Gutekunst, the fullback position has essentially vanished. It's not really a Gutekunst thing, it's an NFL thing. It's kind of vanished across the entire NFL, so the position of fullback, you could probably leave blank. I don't even think we have anybody that you could argue could be. If I heard Clayton and the boys were talking, I think they were talking about Colin Oliver, putting him at fullback or something. If you want, if you're playing a game or betting on your 53, I mean that should be like 20 points right there if you get that one right. Generally, they keep 3 running backs. The notable exceptions, you got 2018 when Aaron Jones was suspended. They initially just kept the 2. In 2022, they had Jones and Dillon as the only 2. Otherwise, it's been 3 to 4, depending on the special teams value and versatility. So that'll be the other thing. Count on 3, unless that number 4 really provides a lot of special teams value. There's no reason in my mind to think that there would be 2, considering we're talking about Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, and Emmanuel Wilson, even though Emmanuel Wilson is one of those guys that in my mind, like I said, there are some times that guys are really good and the Packers just don't seem to like them. There are other times the Packers are obsessed with guys, probably too much. Wilson is one of those guys that I can't help but think the Packers are like, yeah, if we can get rid of him, I would rather we do that. The sooner we can replace that guy, the better, and I don't understand why. I'm hoping that they learned last year that he's quite good, but I just don't. That's usually not how it goes. They come out, they perform, and the Packers still are just like, yeah, he just doesn't fit, though, you know? He's not 5'9", 220. I mean, actually he is. He's 5'11", 226. He is exactly what Gutekunst wants. I don't know, man. But every reason to believe that that's probably going to be the 3. That's, you know, the value of those 3 and then the massive drop-off afterward, although we'll have to see what these guys can bring. Probably the most dramatic positional variation has been with wide receiver. That's going to be the hardest one to pin down. In 2018, Gutekunst brought 8 receivers, including 3 rookie draft picks, which is the most in over a decade for the team. And then in 2020, just 2 years later, they only kept 5. More recently, it's kind of stabilized between 6 and 7. So that's probably the range you're looking for, but I mean, you're talking anywhere from 5 to 8, which is a pretty big range. Packers, you're looking at 3 to 4 tight ends. Gutekunst has kept 4 in 5 out of his 7 years, which the NFL average is 3. So the Packers, and this probably has a Matt LaFleur influence more than anything else, the Packers have been pretty tight end heavy. Again, 5 of 7 years they've kept 4. The NFL average is 3. And then as far as the offensive line, there's always been some pretty heavy investment here. They very rarely dip below 9 guys, very often getting to 10 or 11, as you saw in 2023. From 2021 onward, Gutekunst has kept 9 to 11 offensive linemen each year. The typical for an NFL team is 8 or 9. So this is another area where this is sort of a philosophical thing with the Green Bay Packers of heavy offensive line investment, which should not surprise us when you look at how we treat the offensive line in the draft, how often we do it, you know, the constant commitment to offensive line and the fruits of that. The Packers going back to the 90s have just had very good offensive lines. I mean, they talk about the importance of quarterback. Everybody understands that, and every team kind of gets it, although I think the Packers prioritize that a lot. But I think there's also a very heavy reliance on offensive line that's maybe just less talked about. Again, because not only do they invest heavily in it just in terms of raw numbers, but even compared to other teams, you're talking about 9 to 11 compared to an NFL roster generally looking at 8 to 9. Moving over to the defensive line. Defensive line numbers typically hover between 5 and 7. Obviously, we've gone from 3-4 to 4-3. Not sure at this point, considering we only had 1 year, if that's going to have any kind of a real impact on that decision. I'm guessing it won't, but I don't know. In the 3-4 scheme, which was prevalent in 2009, for example, they typically kept 4 to 6 outside linebackers, edge rushers. Obviously been a lot of investment in that position across both GMs from Clay Matthews and Perry and Gary and Van Ness. 23 and 24, Gutekunst had 6 edge rushers each of those 2 years with 4 to 5 off-ball linebackers. And then as far as secondary, when you combine cornerbacks and safeties, you're typically looking at 10 to 11, sometimes getting up to 12. I think, was it last year that was super goofy? This is probably looking at, as the league moves toward a more pass-heavy approach. You kind of put a little bit more of an emphasis on your DBs, perhaps, especially when you're looking at more nickel and dime. You just need more bodies on the field in those positions. So if you're looking at your starters plus your depth, instead of saying we need 2 corners and then 2 corners to back them up, you're saying we need 3 to 4 corners and then 3 to 4 to back them up. Maybe not exactly, but you get the idea. But cornerback also has a good amount of variability. You saw up to 7 in 2019, and then maybe 2023 is what I was thinking of. It was actually really low. They initially only kept 4 with Eric Stokes on PUP. But generally, as far as specifically corner, you're looking at about 5 to 6. Safeties around 4 or 5. The other thing, the Packers obviously right now are very young, but they've always been a team that is skewed young in that, I mean, the averages might vary because if you got really old guys like Rodgers or Mason Crosby or whatever, that'll hurt your average. But they've always really leaned on the rookie class, the guys on rookie contracts, undrafted free agents. 2018, the Green Bay Packers had 12 rookies, which was 23% of their roster. League average 15%. In 2022, they had 12 rookies, which was the entire 11-man draft class plus one undrafted long snapper. 2023, 14 rookies on the 53, which was 26% of the team. Obviously, we're looking at an infusion of young players post-Aaron Rodgers. 2024 was a little bit lighter, a lot of that probably due to the injuries and whatnot, but only 8 rookies, which is still 15%, which is about NFL average. On top of that, with that infusion of young people for multiple years, some of these guys are going to stick around. Christian, we got our wide receivers and all that. There's just less space. Obviously, one of the reasons the Packers are able to continually get solid undrafted free agents is they've had a legacy, a history going back for a long time of not only giving undrafted free agents opportunities, but legit opportunities, not just token opportunities. And they've been able to thrive here in Green Bay. They had an incredible streak from 2005 to 2022 of every single year having an undrafted free agent rookie on their 53-man roster. 2023, that technically broke, but they did claim UDFA kicker Brandon Narveson off a waiver shortly after, which did kind of continue that trend. Some of the very notable UDFAs, Tramon Williams, Sam Shields obviously is a massive one, Lane Taylor in 2013. You got guys like Frank Zombo in 2010, Ladarius Gunter in 2015, Kentrell Bryce in 2016, Tyler Lancaster in 2018, Chris Barnes in 2020, Jack Heflin, a trash can full of dirt in 2021, Malik Heath in 2023, Emmanuel Wilson in 2023, and Brenton Cox in 2023. What a heck of an undrafted free agent class that is. My goodness. And then obviously another thing, and we've kind of already touched on it, if you're looking at who makes the 53, on the fringes, a lot of times the tiebreaker comes down to special teams ability. So when you're looking at guys like Mecole Hardman, when you're trying to figure out who gets that last wide receiver spot, if he ends up being your returner, like, it's not Savion Williams, it's not Matthew Golden, it's not Jaden Reed, you might have to say, I think Mecole gets the job over Bo Melton, for example, or Malik Heath, or whoever. So with that sort of foundation set, why don't we take our final break? I want to come back, and I've got my list here of numbers from 2018 to 2024, how many they've kept, and I don't know if we're going to fully do like a 53, but I think at the very least what I want to do is look at the maximum and determine, kind of the cutoff line, and then maybe start working backwards from there and see what we can determine. But we'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so at quarterback, this is an easy one. The last 4 years in a row, they've kept 2. 2020 was the last time they had 3, and then 2018, his first year, they also kept 3. So we'll go with 3 for now. I think it's safe to say that there will be 2, but it's very obvious, it's very easy. Jordan Love, Malik Willis, and Sean Clifford are those 3. Running back is another one that's probably pretty easy. They have not kept more than 3 since 2020. They had 2019 and 2020, they had 4, but I'm going to immediately break my own rule and say, let's say 3 is the more realistic number. Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, Emmanuel Wilson are those 3. Again, 2 is in consideration, but for now we're kind of going on the high end. Then we get to wide receiver. They did keep 7 in 2022. They haven't kept 8 since 2018, his first year here. They've kept 6 4 times, 3 of the last 4 years. if they kept 6, obviously Watson isn't a part of it, but you've got Romeo, Golden, Reed, Williams, and Wicks, and then one more spot, which would either be Bo Melton, Mecole Hardman, or Malik Heath. That's the 3 you have to choose from. Now, if they keep 8, you can keep all of them, but that's it. There's no Julian Hicks. There's no Cornelius Johnson, for those of you that are big fans. So it's somewhere of those 3, it's somewhere between 1 and all 3 of them, with the most likely being 1, a chance that there's 2. By the way, they did keep 5 receivers in 2020, which could be Reed, Golden, Dobbs, Wicks, and Williams, and that's it. And I will say, as much as that's an outlier, if Williams and Golden actually perform at a decent level, it's not impossible to say, we got enough, dude. With Reed and Romeo and Dontavian already able to hold it down, Golden's playing really well, and Savion is if they're performing, unless we need a guy for returns like Mecole Hardman, But I'm going to add all 8 just because, first of all, I don't know which one it would be, and then also it could be all 3 technically. Again, Christian Watson would obviously not make the 53. But that does mean Julian Hicks and Cornelius Johnson are practice squad at best. At tight end, they've kept 3 or 4 every single year. The last 2 years has been 3, but we'll do 4, and we'll just take the top 4 here, which would be Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, Ben Sims, and John Fitzpatrick. It is maybe a battle for the bottom of this, to be fair. I mean, after Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, I don't know that Ben Sims has it 1,000% locked up, so we can call that a competition. By the way, speaking of competitions so far, I don't think there is one at quarterback at all. You've got your 1, your 2, and your 3, and it's a matter of how many they keep. At running back, it's not really a competition other than can Marshawn Lloyd establish himself as a number 2, which we hope. But we know that there's a 1, 2, and a 3, and I think they're keeping at least 3. If they don't keep Emmanuel Wilson, I'm going to punch a thing, and I'm not sure what that thing is yet. At receiver, again, I don't know how much of a competition there is. I guess the competition is for Bo Melton, Mecole Hardman, and Malik Heath to sort themselves. And I don't even know if they necessarily can because they're so distinct, and it comes down to what do the Packers need. You know, I mean, Malik Heath can be a better receiver, but if they're looking for speed, which they may not need anymore with Golden, then Bo Melton's your guy. If you're looking for special teams, Mecole Hardman's your guy. If you're looking for more of a bigger, which maybe they are, I don't know, a bigger sort of a go up and get it X type of receiver at 6'2", 213, I think that really is what it comes down to, more so than anything, is what flavor are you looking for? But, you know, they have to battle for it. They got to see how that all shakes out. And then again, how many are staying? Because we know the minimum is 5, and we know exactly who those 5 are. Beyond that, I guess Cornelius, Julian Hicks, and anybody else that might come in, see if they can possibly burst onto the scene and see what they can do. Julian Hicks, we picked him up last year as an undrafted free agent. We waived him, put him on the old practice squad last year, because you got to waive him to put him on the practice squad, and then brought him back this year to try again. So we'll see. Don't really remember the guy, but he was here last year. And then Cornelius Johnson initially signed with the Chargers, went on the Chargers practice squad. We picked him up, put him on our practice squad last year. And so we'll get a chance to see the 6'3", 212-pound Cornelius Johnson. But again, tight end, I'll just put all 4 on here, but I do think, obviously, you got Tucker and Luke Musgrave, and obviously, you know, there's always a chance somebody gets hurt and is on PUP and all that. We're not worth worrying about that right now. And then after that, yeah, it's a matter of Johnny Lumpkin, Messiah Swinson, John Fitzpatrick, and Ben Sims kind of working it out and seeing what they can do. I do think the Packers like Ben Sims. He's been around we picked him up in 23. He's been around a while. So he's probably the lock number 3. But, you know, we'll call it a competition. John Fitzpatrick was just recently re-signed by the Packers, I think like last month. But I'll put those 4 on currently as the tight ends. Again, let's say that number 4 spot is the battle, and then are they going to get a 4th? Offensive line is where you got to do a little bit of work here. They kept 9 4 years in a row, and then the last 3 has been 10, 11, 10. So let's go through, I guess, the obvious ones. Rashid, Banks, Jenkins, Tom, Ryan, Morgan, Belton. Is there anybody else? I mean, there's some pretty obvious ones, but let's say that those are locks. And I guess there technically is a question about Rashid. I mean, if he's not going to start, they'd love to have him as a backup, but I don't know. I guess they're not going to let him walk unless there's some crazy trade value for him, but you'd love to have a guy like that as a backup. You get to the playoffs, we've lost tackles so many times, getting rid of Rashid and then going into the playoffs and losing your tackle and not having Rashid is worth getting kicked in the throat over. All right, so that's 7. We need 3 more, and we have to choose between, I think Monk is a pretty safe bet. I think John Williams, our 7th-round pick, is also a pretty solid bet. However, there is Travis Glover, Kadeem Telfort. We've got 3 undrafted free agents who are, I think I'm going to add Monk and John Williams, and then we got one more spot. I mean, this is certainly going to be a battle here. And remember, there's always a practice squad. It's not like, they're done forever. It's maybe later. Interestingly, we went from being very tackle heavy to, I mean, Belton can be inside, Ryan can be inside, Morgan can be inside, John Williams, who we picked up, is inside. We've got a lot more flexibility on the interior as opposed to last year again. I think it was Kadeem Telfort ended up playing guard, which is just a disaster. No offense to Kadeem, but traditionally you'd like him to stay at tackle if need be. And I think I will pick up Kadeem as our 10th guy, which would leave out Travis Glover, who was a 6th-round pick last year, which maybe I shouldn't rule him out because this is year 2 for him. Let's see what he can do. And one of the things I want to try to do is see if I can find my notes from last year. If not, I'll just, I'll do a little digging. Because I am curious from the notes from last year's training camp, kind of how these guys did. And I know I keep pretty detailed notes on that every year with the intention of having them for the future. And for some reason, they're always freaking missing. I don't know. But I'll see if 2024s are there. I'd be interested in digging into a guy like Travis Glover. Some of these guys, again, they were here last year, and I just don't remember. And some of them might have actually been making some strides, and, they didn't quite make the cut. So I want to, maybe for tomorrow, we can kind of dig into that, see what I can find. But for now, Glover is on the outs. Donovan Jennings, Marquise Hayes, Trey Hill, who was acquired by a free agent pickup. That's that whole process in January where you sign guys to whatever the heck you call it. I don't know. Very under the radar sign. People are like, what are you talking about? We picked him up. Yeah, we did. It was in January. Don't worry about it. I think he was with Cincinnati, which is not a good sign. I mean, you think about terrible offensive lines. It's like, you couldn't make it there? Jeez. And then we have the 3 undrafted free agents, Brent Banks, and the 2 Wisconsin guys, J.J. Lippy, Tyler Cooper, which, again, we can dig back into that. But there's a lot of guys here that are kind of, it's a very tough offensive line to break into considering the amount of investment here. Again, Rashid, Aaron Banks, who we picked up, Elton is locked in, Zach Tom is locked in. I shouldn't, Rashid is not locked in, but at the very least, Sean Ryan, Rashid Walker, you assume, are hopefully backups, but we'll see. Anthony Belton and Jordan Morgan are massive investments, 1st and 2nd round the last 2 years. Jacob Monk, one of the few guys that's just a center. And so we'll see. They've said John Williams can play 5 positions, but he really hasn't tried. Elton Jenkins was always a backup center. Now he's the starting center. I don't think Banks can play center. I don't think Sean Ryan can play center. Zach Tom probably can, but don't you frickin' dare. Jordan Morgan, I don't think can. Anthony Belton, I don't think can. So, I mean, Jacob Monk has got some pretty serious job security. I'm sure they're going to be cross-training a ton of people just in case. You lose Elton and Monk, you got to do something. Monk, by the way, a last year 5th-round pick, so hopefully, again, sometimes in my mind anyways, I don't know if you guys do this, you look at like a 5th-round pick this year, and it's like, man, I think he's going to be really good, Colin Oliver or whatever. And then a 5th-round pick from last year is just, in my mind, he's like an undrafted free agent. Like, I don't know. I don't know why I do that. It's just either a draft pick becomes a starter and it's like, or they don't, and I just assume they're nothing. You are scum. And Travis Glover and Jacob Monk, for some reason in my mind, not that 5th and 6th round picks generally do much, but still, it's not like they're, UDFAs that have been bouncing around from several teams that have very little chance of ever doing anything. It's year 2 for these guys. Let's see what the heck they can do. All right, continuing on. Defensive line, we're talking interior defensive line. 5 and 6 every single year. There's no 4s, there's no 7s. It's 5 or 6. So let's find 6 guys. Shouldn't be hard. In fact, I think the hard part is going to be getting down to that. But Wyatt and Kenny, Brooks and Wooden, there's your 4. Actually, it's not that hard. Warren Brinson. And then my vote is Nazir Stackhouse, honestly. There is James Esther. No offense to James Esther. And then we've got 2 free agent guys, Nesta, Jade Silvera, and Keith Randolph. I don't know. I'm going to go with Wyatt Clark, Colby Wooden Brooks. I don't know why I use his first name like he's 2 people. Wooden Brooks, and then Brinson Stackhouse. Just because that's what I want to do, and that's fun. But again, looking at the bottom of this is going to be a bit of a battle. Stackhouse, James Esther. Brinson as a 6th-round pick is probably pretty well locked. I can't imagine he doesn't. It's another Gutekunst trait is if you're drafted, you're probably making the team. He does not like to say no to draft picks, and that makes sense for a draft and develop team. You can't really call yourself draft and develop if you don't allow people to develop. But yeah, outside of the 5, Esther, who's a little bit more established, we picked him up as a UDFA last year. Stackhouse, a UDFA this year. And then, again, the other 2 guys who were January signings for the Packers. Silvera here in 2023 signed with Las Vegas, was briefly on the 49ers practice squad last year. And then this January, we picked him up. He is 6'1", 304, which doesn't sound big, but you look at his face, and I swear this dude is a nose tackle. He looks like he's 340 pounds. Keith Randolph, out of Illinois, went to Chicago, so lucky him, and then unfortunately for him, had to go to Green Bay. But Bears picked him up as an undrafted free agent, waived, and then we picked him up in January. But those are my 6, and it is hilarious that you got Stackhouse, Brinson, and Wyatt. 3 Georgia defensive linemen of the 6 on the same team. Edge rushers, 4'4", 5'5", 6'6". Number does not go down. We'll be looking for 6. So we got Gary, Barron Sorrell, Van Ness, Inigbare. That's just 4. Let's start with that. Those are sort of the 4 locks. I think Brenton Cox I'm hoping is very close, as well as the rookie Colin Oliver, who was a 5th-round pick. I can't imagine they wouldn't put him on the roster. So he's pretty close. And then again, I have to assume Brenton Cox. Maybe not, because he's one of those guys that was kind of, we'll call him up because we need him. I'm hoping he really impressed everybody because he was really impressive. In fact, I would love it if he got more opportunities. But I feel great about that group of 6, and I hope it's not less than that. You got Gary, Van Ness, Barron Sorrell, Kingsley, Colin Oliver, and Brenton Cox. I'm sorry to Aaron Mosby, who also did really well. I don't know if there's a chance they go crazy and bump it up to 7. I don't think it's honestly necessary. Again, I like Mosby, but you got Brenton Cox, which I'm good with. And you got just a lot to play with here. With Rashawn and Van Ness hopefully as your top guys. Van Ness can continue what he was doing at the end of last year, which again, as I pointed out, he was like everybody else improving. It was actually very good down the stretch. Sorrell kind of fits in with that group, the bigger guys who's surprisingly slippery and speedy. Kingsley, who just is what he is, a fine backup. Colin Oliver, who brings a real interesting twist. And Brenton Cox, who's just a freaking horse, man. And I think it's just a really good fit for this 4-3 defense. I think that kind of unlocked him a little bit. He was always kind of built for this Jeff Hafley lineup, hand in the dirt, fire off the edge kind of thing. I feel good about that. Stack backers. I don't know why that annoys me so much. I'm gonna make an annoying sound every time we have to do that. It's 4 or 5 every year. It's been 5, 3 of the last 4. We'll look for 5. Let's see, off the bat here, Cooper and Quay, Tyron, Hopper, and McDuffie, and then probably Isaiah Simmons. But we got to see, Simmons is a tryout guy. Again, I think everyone assumes that this is some big swing. It's not. I still haven't seen the numbers. I know it's a 1-year deal, but otherwise we have Christian Welch, And we got the undrafted free agent though. That'll be interesting to see if he can kind of stand out a little bit. Also, Tyron Hopper has to do. I mean, I'm kind of just giving him the job. He was marginally impressive, I know, in the little bit of time that we got to see him, which I was very happy with because I like Tyron Hopper. But I mean, if he doesn't step up, and maybe Simmons takes that spot, and who knows, maybe Dumas Johnson over here ends up. So there is going to be a little bit of a competition. I think you've got your obvious starters in Quay, Cooper, and then Isaiah being kind of your third rotational guy, whether you have 2 or 3 inside linebackers. Tyron Hopper presumably is your first backup. And then it's kind of a competition with Isaiah Simmons. Can he win the job? Otherwise, and this assumes that we have 5 instead of 4, but that's what we're doing today is assuming 5. But there's kind of a competition there with Simmons and Dumas Johnson, but also Christian Welch, who's still in the mix. But I think for now, I will just put Quay, Cooper, McDuffie, Hopper, and then Isaiah Simmons, which, again, I like that group. I really do. I mean, we'll see what Simmons can do, but even if we just assume he's kind of like an Colin Oliver, he's a guy that is supremely athletic. He's not a very well-rounded guy. He's kind of a tweener, but we've identified a couple areas where he can excel. And so we'll just kind of plug him in situationally. Otherwise, again, McDuffie, Cooper, and Walker have very defined weak side, strong side, middle linebacker roles. With Tyron Hopper as your backup, I'm kind of digging that. I like our defensive line, too, with Clark, Wyatt, Brooks, Wooden, and then the addition of Brinson and Stackhouse. The defense is, I'm so far, we're 3 for 3. I'm pretty excited about every single one of these groups. Corner probably is not going to be as much. And I don't really know what to do with Jair. I guess considering we're doing 7, which is kind of an outlier, it would be more reasonable to probably do 6. In fact, the last 3 years we've done 5, 4, 5. But we'll do, if I can even find 7, which might even just be, how many do we have here? We have 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have 12. So yeah, we'll do 7. That way the addition of Jair probably won't matter because we're more than likely going to have 6 at the most. Again, we've done 5, 4, and 5 the last 3 years. Safeties have gone up, corners have gone down. So they've kind of swapped to that way for some reason. DBs as a whole kind of maintains, I guess. So, I mean, the first variable is going to be Javon Bullard. I mean, if he's a corner, which he was kind of last year, that's going to cut into this a little bit. I will say, though, there's a decent chance, which I'm excited about, that Kalen King makes it. We'll have to see, but I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm at 6, and he just made it. So Jair, Keyshawn, Nate Hobbs, Carrington, Micah Robinson, Kalen King. Still left, we have Isaiah Dunn, who was a January pickup. Caleb Hayes was a January pickup. Kamal Hayden, and then 3 UDFAs, Kazir Brown, Tyron Herring, and Jonathan Baldwin. So if we assume Jair's not here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in, and that assumes that Micah is ahead of Kalen King, which he might not be. So in other words, we might be Keyshawn, Hobbs, Valentine, and then Kalen King might even be number 4. He's got to earn that. And that, again, Bullard is a part of that equation, but even still, it's Kalen King's job to lose in my mind. I think he's by default in that spot unless he just gets beat. And there is a lot of competition. Again, we got 5 new guys in the room. 6. Well, Hobbs is already in front of him, but still. Hobbs, Robinson, Caleb Hayes. Actually, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Good Lord. Isaiah Dunn. So 3 free agents, 2 of them in January, 1 of them Nate Hobbs. A draft pick, and then 3 undrafted free agents. So he's got some battling to do as a 7th round pick, but I like Kalen King, and I'm hoping he can end up being on this roster because he earned it, because he's a good football player. But let's see. Jair, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6. We need 1 more. I kind of want to pick from the UDFA group, and I think you know exactly what I want to do. There is a man, I believe his nickname is Bugs, who is 6'1", 223 pounds. He might suck and be off the team in a week. I have no idea, but he just made our roster. So Jair, Keyshawn, Nate Hobbs, Carrington Valentine, Micah Robinson, Kalen King, the 2 7th round. Actually, Valentine is a 7th, but he's a lock. 3 7th-round picks, and then Kazir Bugs Brown, the 223-pound freaking corner, is who I currently have. And then safety, 5'4", 4, 5'5". So 4 or 5, we'll look for 5. We got McKinney, Williams, Bullard, Zane, Oladapo. That's easy. There's only 6 here. Omar Brown is the other one. We'll keep him off. Again, Bullard potentially is a corner, but it's all DB anyway, so we'll not worry about that. That was an easy one. And then the 3 special teamers, Daniel Whalen, Brandon McManus, and Matt Orzich would be the 3. And remember, this is not 53 that I did. This is more than 53. We went to the maximum. I'm not going to continue and start cutting down. We'll call it here for today, but I just wanted to kind of get a little bit of a peek at some of the potential conflicts. I mean, right now, how many do we have? This is 60 people. So 7 of them would have to go bye-bye. Actually, we could probably do it real quick. Sean Clifford is out, so we need 6 more. Could very easily pull 2 of these receivers out. But at the very least, we'll pull Malik for now. If I can grab him. So we need what? We can take off John Fitzpatrick, the tight end here. I'm going to leave the offensive lineman. Defensive line, edge, linebacker, corner. Let's pull my boy Bugs off here. All right, so what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I got to pull Bo Melton off. We had 8 receivers. I just don't think we need them. We got to pull Jair. Okay, I was going to say, don't make me take frickin' Kalen King off of here. So that's 2, 4, 6, right? Is that what I said, or do we need pull 7? We had 60. We got to get down to 53, so we need 1 more. Yeah, so this is pretty tough here. We could go with 2 running backs and pull Emmanuel Wilson, but I don't want to do that. We could get down to, like I said, 5 receivers and pull Mecole Hardman. Tight ends, we're kind of down to the minimum already. Offensive line, we're kind of down to minimum, but not really. Last 3 years have been at least 10. However, before that was 9. This might be where we pull from. We could pull a defensive lineman, which would be Nazir Stackhouse. I do not want to do that. We can pull an edge rusher, which is probably Brenton Cox. I definitely don't want to do that. Could pull a linebacker, Isaiah Simmons, or Tyron Hopper. I'd rather not, just from a purely depth standpoint. I'd like to have another guy, but I mean, I guess we could pull Simmons. Fortunately, Kalen King is pretty safe here because we're pretty bottomed out. I mean, again, there was that weird year in 2023 with 4, but I think that was kind of fluky. I think 5 is probably the bottom. And then we have 6 safeties. Oh no, we have 5 safeties, which is already kind of at the bottom. We had 4 one year, but I'm not pulling another one, especially with Bullard kind of being a corner. So what? Simmons or an offensive lineman is kind of our options, or Mecole Hardman. I mean, the easiest, most fan-friendly option is probably just pull an offensive lineman here. We have how many? We have 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, who would that be? Kadeem? Probably pull Kadeem. Could be John Williams, but I like having the interior depth there. I'm just going to pull Kadeem. Again, I wasn't really planning on doing this anyways. But yeah, we pull Kadeem off of there. We needed him last year because we were a little thin, but we pretty well loaded up now. We also, remember, we had Morgan hurt last year. So assuming no injuries with Rashid, Banks, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, Anthony Belton, Jordan Morgan, Jacob Monk, John Williams. And as far as guys that can play tackle, you got Rashid, technically Elton, but, whatever. Zach Tom, Anthony Belton, Jordan Morgan. They said John Williams, but I don't think that's a legitimate thing. We got a lot of guys that can play tackle, so I think Kadeem becomes somewhat expendable, especially considering, Rasheed Walker ideally is going into that backup role. So that's probably a pretty safe bet. I feel pretty good about it, man. There's nobody where I'm like, oh, that sucks. I mean, obviously, if Jair stays, we got a decision to make, but I don't want to say I'll be happy to take Kalen King off at that point, but I'll get over it. I mean, the biggest loss here is what, Bo Melton? Which, again, I think becomes expendable when you've got the guys that you have, the speed that, Mecole's got speed, Golden's got speed, and when Christian Watson gets back, we have more than enough speed all over the field. Even got some read speed, you know what I'm saying? I like Malik, But, I mean, we got Savion Williams that can fill that role. Talking about Heath, not Willis. So, yeah, I mean, potentially, there's a lot that's going to happen between now and then. There's going to be different people in, different people out, injuries taking place, PUP list, all kinds of ways of doing stuff. But I think for now, this is kind of where my head's at, having not really put a lot. I mean, I put a decent amount into it, but not a lot into the specific players, more so into the roster construction. And I haven't looked at if it's really like 50-50, but you assume it is because of the numbers tend to line up. But, all right, I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.